Merci beaucoup tout le monde d'être venu aujourd'hui. Thank you very much to our hosts for having us. It's great to be in beautiful British Columbia. Unfortunately, though, it feels like everything is broken in this country right now. Whether it is the 40-year high in inflation that Justin Trudeau has caused through his inflationary deficits and taxes, whether it's the 35-year-olds living in their parents' basements because house prices have doubled and Vancouver is now the third most overpriced housing market on planet Earth, worse than New York City, Los Angeles, London, England, Singapore, places with more money and people and less land. Whether it is the nearly 100% increase in fuel prices or the projected doubling of home heating bills that is about to hit families as the winter is upon us. And it's not just money. Here in Vancouver, we see crime and homelessness and addiction soaring. Under Justin Trudeau, violent crime is up 32%. Here in Vancouver, we see tent cities popping up. BC has had a 300% increase in drug overdose deaths since Trudeau took office. It's projected this year 2,000 of our fellow citizens will lose their lives in this province because of drug overdoses. And then we learned that the Prime Minister has been aware of allegations of a foreign government interfering in our elections, including by funneling illegal donations to nearly a dozen political candidates. He's known about these allegations for almost a year and done nothing. Everything feels broken. Nothing is worse, though, than the price of food. You know, we see food prices are up 11%. That's a 40-year high in food price inflation. And we have 1 in 5 Canadians who are actually skipping meals because they cannot afford the price of food. 1.5 million Canadians visited food banks in 1 month alone this year. Yesterday, I went to the Guru Nanak Food Bank to thank members of the Greater Vancouver Sikh community for feeding the hungry. And they reported to me that there's more hunger now than they can ever remember. So what are we going to do about it? We have to get the country back on track. My plan is to cap government spending, to end the inflationary deficits so that we can bring inflation down. Cancel Trudeau and Jagmeet Singh's plan to triple the carbon tax, which would only drive up the cost of food, heat, and gas even further. I would note that they plan to go ahead with this increase in taxes and impose it on British Columbia, forcing British Columbians to triple their already high carbon tax. A Poilievre government would cancel that plan. Finally, we need to remove the red tape and the other barriers that our government is imposing on our farmers. Cancel the tariffs and taxes on the fuel and fertilizer of Canadian farmers so that they can produce more affordable food for our people. We live in one of the most agriculturally abundant nations on earth. It should be easy for people to put food on the table in a country with so much farmland. But because of our government's anti-farming policies, food prices are rising out of reach for the average person. C'est la raison pour laquelle je suis ici aujourd'hui, pour souligner les augmentations dans les coûts de la nourriture. L'inflation alimentaire est à un niveau le plus élevé depuis 40 ans. Il y a 1 sur 5 Canadiens qui manquent des repas pour pouvoir payer leurs factures alimentaires. Il y a eu 1,5 million de Canadiens qui sont allés à une banque alimentaire dans un mois. C'est ridicule. Les Canadiens devraient pouvoir manger, devraient pouvoir payer leurs factures dans un pays avec une abondance de terrains agricoles. On devrait pouvoir nourrir tous nos gens. Mais ce n'est pas juste l'inflation qu'on voit. C'est le fait que la criminalité est allée à plus élevé, de 32% augmentation de crimes violents, des morts, des drogues et aussi les gens sans abri. Ça, c'est le résultat des politiques que les néo-démocrates et les libéraux ont poursuivies partout au pays qui n'ont pas fonctionné. Donc, un gouvernement conservateur mené par Pierre Poilievre va mettre en place des politiques pragmatiques pour contrer la crime violente en mettant les criminels les plus violents en prison, en renforçant nos frontières pour empêcher l'importation des armes et finalement, en donnant un soin aux gens qui ont des addictions aux drogues et qui ont besoin de notre aide. A Poilievre government will put the most violent repeat offenders behind bars, reinforce our borders to keep illegal drugs and guns out, put an end to this taxpayer-subsidized program of paying for people to use dangerous narcotics, and instead put that money into safe recovery programs to help our addicts get off the street, break their addiction, rebuild their lives, just like they're doing in Alberta, where they've managed to cut overdoses in half. It's time for us to take back control of our lives in this country, to fix what is broken, and that's what a Poilievre government will do. Thank you very much.
Pierre will now take a few questions. As a reminder, one question, one follow-up. Please identify your name and the outlet prior to asking your question. Thank you.
Bonjour, M. Poilievre.
Bonjour.
Christian Noël de Radio-Canada. Content de vous voir à Vancouver.
Merci.
On aimerait vous voir plus souvent à Ottawa, si je peux me permettre. Vous avez une stratégie média très contrôlée. En fait, c'est la première fois que vous convoquez les médias en 60 jours depuis que vous avez été élu chef pour prendre des questions dans un point de presse.
Mais c'est pas vrai.
Mais vous avez...
C'est pas vrai. Vos faits ne sont pas vrais.
Alors, corrigez-moi avant que je vous pose ma première question.
J'ai eu un avis, une disponibilité de presse
Oui.
avec les médias à Toronto. Il y a quelques jours ici à Vancouver. Donc, j'ai pris 40 minutes de questions dans ces disponibilités. Donc, j'ai fait une entrevue très longue avec une journaliste de la Poste nationale, National Post. Donc, j'ai fait des disponibilités. Alors, c'est pas vrai. Il faut avoir des faits. Si vous voulez poser des questions, il faut savoir des faits. Hein?
Vous avez raison. Et le fait qui s'en venait dans la fin de ma première réponse, la fin de ma première question, c'est des points de presse devant la tribune de la presse à Ottawa. Donc, ma question est la suivante. Certains disent que c'est parce que vous manquez de courage. Je ne sais pas si c'est vrai, mais est-ce que vous avez peur des questions de la tribune de la presse à Ottawa?
Mais je suis ici. Je reçois des questions. Je reçois des questions. Et il y a des journalistes partout au pays. Ce n'est pas juste des journalistes parlementaires qui vont contrôler l'agenda. Donc, j'aimerais vous remercier d'avoir corrigé vos faits parce que vous aviez tort en disant que je n'avais pas eu des disponibilités médiatiques. J'étais disponible. J'ai pris des questions des journalistes, mais ce n'est pas juste des journalistes sur la colline parlementaire qui peuvent poser des questions.
I think my colleagues in English would like an answer to my first question before I ask my first
Well, yes. First of all, the question had factual errors. The questioner was saying that I have not had press conferences. In fact, I've had press conferences in Toronto, in Vancouver, and I've had one-on-one sit-downs with journalists. So the facts were wrong. I am speaking to journalists, and I remind you that there are journalists right across this country. It's not just the parliamentary press gallery that gets to control the agenda. We get to talk to journalists across the country and to Canadians. That's how we reach out.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Merci. Mon suivi, juste pour dire que les faits n'étaient pas complets parce que je n'avais pas terminé ma phrase, mais merci d'avoir corrigé ou d'avoir précisé. Ma deuxième question, la directrice des communications de votre parti pense que le Forum économique mondial contrôle les gouvernements à travers le monde. Est-ce que vous pensez la même chose? Et quel message s'envoie aux Canadiens, vous croyez?
My message is that I'm going to be working for Canadians, for the people of this... En français?
Oui.
Moi, je travaille pour le vrai monde ici, pour les citoyens du Canada, et mes priorités sont de réduire l'inflation, réduire les taxes, équilibrer le budget et contrer les crimes violents. Et celles sont mes priorités et celles sont les priorités de toute mon équipe. Merci.
Renee Filipponi, CBC News.
Yes.
The federal government is set to release a new strategy on China and the Pacific. It says it wants to work with China on issues like climate change, nuclear proliferation, non-proliferation, but also challenge Beijing over threats to Taiwan, free speech in Hong Kong, the treatment of Uyghurs. What's your response to that new strategy from the federal government?
Well, I have to see the strategy. So far, there has been no strategy. When it's published, we'll comment on it. I think it's very troubling that the Prime Minister has known about allegations of foreign interference in Canadian elections since last January. and he hasn't taken any action. I haven't seen any evidence of action from this government to protect our democracy from that kind of foreign interference. I think Justin Trudeau needs to explain why he knew and why he did nothing. We need to protect democracy for Canadians. No foreign government should have any influence over our elections or our future. That should reside in the hands of Canadians, and so far that has not been the case with the Prime Minister. He has failed to protect our democracy. On a more global level, we need to have a government that stands up for human rights and for freedoms and defends Canada's interests in an increasingly dangerous world. Thank you.
En français, s'il vous plaît.
Oui. Merci. Selon les reportages de cette semaine, le Premier ministre était au courant de l'ingérence politique dans nos élections d'un gouvernement étranger depuis janvier. Il n'a rien fait. Il y a 2 élections dans lesquelles il y a des allégations d'ingérence d'un gouvernement étranger et le Premier ministre est en pouvoir depuis ce temps-là. Il n'a rien fait. Alors nous proposons que le gouvernement devrait agir et j'aurais dû mentionner en anglais, je vais le répéter en anglais, le Parti conservateur va convoquer un comité pour avoir une enquête sur les allégations publiées par Global News. Donc, il va y avoir de nouvelles dans quelques minutes d'une réunion du comité des affaires de procédure pour faire enquête sur ces questions-là. I should have mentioned in English, the Conservative Party is pushing for meetings to investigate the allegations of interference by the Chinese Communist government in our elections. We're pushing for these meetings to happen at the Procedure and House Affairs Committee. We believe we have enough signatures to make those meetings happen, and we can get an investigation going into what the Prime Minister knew, what he's going to do about it, and how we're going to protect our democracy from foreign interference.
Good morning, Mr. Poilievre. Miguel Santamaria, Global News. As you've already mentioned, Global News reported the Prime Minister was briefed by CSIS on significant interference by China in the 2019 election. Your party has promised to get tougher on foreign interference, as you mentioned. How concerned are you about the CCB's alleged interference campaign in Canada, and what exactly would you do differently if you were in power?
Well, we're very concerned about the allegations that came to light that the Prime Minister was briefed of foreign interference in our democratic process as early as January. There have been widely publicized allegations of interference in 2 consecutive elections now, and nothing done. A Prime Minister who sat by and done nothing. He's resisted even opportunities for us to investigate this interference. And so that's why Conservatives have forced hearings at the Procedure and House Affairs Committee to investigate the facts, to find out what happened. We're looking at potential proposals that would bolster our counterintelligence, that would protect Canadian citizens from intimidation, and that would expose any level of interference by any foreign government in our democracy. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. Another question. We have heard extensive testimony at the Emergencies Act inquiry, including concerns from police and national security agencies about elements inside the convoy. Has any of this changed your view of whether the Emergencies Act should have been invoked? And if you had known what has been revealed into testimony so far, would you still have supported the convoy? Do you still support it now?
So my position is the same as it was before the convoy arrived, the same as it was during, and the same as it is now, which is this. I support those peaceful and law-abiding protesters who demonstrated for their lives and livelihoods and liberties, while condemning any individual who broke laws, behaved badly, or blockaded critical infrastructure. I think it's possible to support the overall cause of personal free choice in vaccination and the overall cause of respecting the trucker's ability to earn an income, while holding individually responsible anyone who behaved badly, broke laws, or blockaded key infrastructure. That was my position before, during, and now.
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre.
Thank you.
Hi there, Brenna Owen with the Canadian Press. This question is actually from my colleagues in Ottawa. Do you support Danielle Smith's assertion that when a province doesn't agree with a federal law, the province can choose not to enforce it?
Look, Justin Trudeau has created divisions right across this country. He's turned west against east. He's turned provinces against the federal government. He has, just yesterday, caused a massive blow-up of meetings on healthcare funding. So they walked away without getting anything done. The problem is not any particular premier. The problem is the Prime Minister, who's created these divisions and caused people to feel like they have no choice but to engage in conflict with the nation's capital. I think we need to do is have a Prime Minister that will respect provincial jurisdiction, allow our resources to be developed, and get things done with the premiers, rather than picking pointless fights and dividing Canadians for political advantage. Le Premier ministre a divisé les Canadiens. On a vu hier, avec les réunions par rapport à la santé, que les premiers ministres n'ont pas pu résoudre et les ministres de la Santé n'ont pas pu résoudre une entente pour supporter notre système de santé. Justin Trudeau aime les chicanes. Il aime diviser les gens. Moi, je ne veux pas diviser le Canada. Je veux unir notre pays pour mettre tous nos premiers ministres sur la même page de servir les Canadiens. Donc, le fait qu'on a des premiers ministres partout au pays qui ont des propositions controversées par rapport aux pouvoirs provinciaux, c'est le résultat d'un premier ministre à Ottawa qui divise. Moi, je serais un premier ministre qui va unir.
I guess I do just want to press you a little bit more on that in terms of, I suppose under your government, how might you approach a province that was choosing not to enforce a federal law or expressing opposition to it?
Well, premiers have the right to express opposition to any law they want. That's as old as Canada. What I would do is, first of all, I'd stop attacking provincial jurisdiction. Trudeau passed Bill C-69, for example. Well, the courts have found that C-69, which attacks our energy sector, is unconstitutional. Now, we'll see how that plays out in the appeal to the Supreme Court. But it's not just premiers that are saying that the Prime Minister's laws violate provincial jurisdiction, it's the courts. So whether it's his carbon tax, which he's imposing on the provinces against their will, or it's his attack on our energy and resource sector, or it's his obsession with going after law-abiding, vetted, trained firearms owners, duck hunters, sport shooters. He constantly attacks provinces and people rather than working together to get things done. In a Poilievre government, you'll have a Prime Minister who will respect provincial jurisdiction and avoid these unnecessary fights.
Mike Hager, Globe and Mail.
Yes.
Mr. Poilievre, what's your assessment of the evidence at the Convoy inquiry so far? And you mentioned that, there's a few individuals. How do you estimate how large a group those individuals were as part of the larger convoy?
Well, we'll find out when they publish the findings of the hearings, but my position was before the convoy even arrived, during its presence in Ottawa and thereafter, that I support the law-abiding and peaceful protesters who were demonstrating for their livelihoods and for their liberties, while simultaneously condemning any individual who behaved badly, blocked critical infrastructure, or broke laws. That's how our system works. We hold individuals responsible for their actions, and that's what I would do.
But your assessment of the evidence, you didn't answer the question.
Well, my assessment of the evidence, as I said at the outset, will come when the report is provided. We don't have a report of the findings. When we do, I'll give you an assessment.
Okay, and every other political leader takes questions on Parliament Hill. These newsers you spoke of, we didn't get any advance notice, I hear from colleagues. Why don't you take questions from the media?
Well, I'm taking questions right now.
On Parliament Hill regularly like everyone else.
We'll take questions. We'll also, remember, it's not just the parliamentary press gallery that controls the agenda. And I think that's what's going on here, is that the press gallery believes that it should dominate the political discourse. I believe we have a big country with people who are not necessarily part of the press gallery. Multicultural media. I've held multicultural media press conferences to reach out to new voices who are often shut out of the political debate on Parliament Hill.
But you're there
Yeah.
most of the time.
Yeah.
That's the point. You're there in Ottawa most of the time.
I think that part of the
Proximity.
problem is that you know, we're all too obsessed with Parliament Hill. We need to be out in the real world to talk to real people on the ground, everyday people who are living their lives under the terrible policies of Justin Trudeau, who can't pay their bills, who see crime going wild on our streets, who can't get children's medicine in their local pharmacies, even though it's available on the other side of the border. These are the stories of everyday Canadians. These are the stories that I want to share. These are the problems that I want to solve. And it won't just be the Parliamentary Press Gallery that has a voice anymore. All Canadians are going to have a voice.
Thank you.
So, thank you. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.